All right, it is now being recorded. So it is recorded today, and this is a webinar, so we can't see your faces, but again, please use that chat feature to communicate with us. We will have time for questions and answers at the end with Michael Dees, so go ahead and get those ready as we're talking today. And I am going to go ahead and introduce Wendy Chesser, the President and CEO with One Southern Indiana.
Thank you so much, Amber, and thanks to all of you who are joining us today. I feel like I should say, and coming to you live from the One Southern Indiana studios, but this is really just a converted conference room. You've all seen it before, but thank you all for joining us. We really got into a rhythm by hosting the Wednesday with Wendy webinars, which is really hard to say, but we did that mostly during the COVID shutdown when there was information to be had, and we wanted to get information out, and we needed to find an easily accessible way for you to engage with our organization. We found, though, that it was not only convenient for us to do these webinars, it was also a way to talk about a variety of topics. And so we're pleased that Michael Dees from BluMine Health is with us today to talk a little bit about not only his business and what's going on in healthcare, but also to talk about golf, because golf can be an important way to grow your business. BluMine, thanks to you, Michael, BluMine was our presenting sponsor for our Networking on the Greens event a couple of weeks ago. Now, a golf event, which made great sense, and it ended up being a great time. So I'm just glad you're here and that we were able to come up with the next feature for how we could talk about golf and keep that alive and well throughout the year.
Well, we had a wonderful afternoon, even though there was a little bit of rain, but I think the event was still very successful. And we were very much appreciative to be a part of it, and we'll look forward to potentially doing it again in the future.
Absolutely, we would like that very much. Okay. Let me ask a little bit about you. Okay. If you would, I could introduce you based on what I know, but tell us tell us how you got to where you are, and we can jump right into a little bit more about your company.
So I'll try to weave in the business topic of golf along the way as we do it. I spent about 24 years in the healthcare risk management business here in the Southern Indiana, Louisville area. Got to Louisville back in 1991 after finishing college and playing golf in college, and then attempting a small career in the professional golf world in Florida before running out of money and having to choose a career to see if I could get back. That led to a discussion with a friend of the family that lived in Louisville, and was recommended that if I wanted to see what Louisville was like, that I could come to Kentucky and potentially, see if there was a career that might be waiting for me here. To make a long story short, ended up in the insurance and the health insurance world during that time. Was told with the small insurance firm that I was working for that since I was had played golf, the game of golf might serve me very well in getting to know people. And they were very generous with a membership to a local golf club there in Louisville. And so I got the opportunity to do just that, continue to play golf and use it in making business connections, relationships, and at that time, advancing a career in healthcare risk management.
Well, okay, so that's fascinating. Help me, let's tie the knot a little tighter. Golf, healthcare risk management. How did those two intertwine in a productive way?
Very good. So, moving to Louisville and in suddenly this area, I didn't know anybody. So, I wasn't from here. So I had to try to find what was the most short, simple, and easy thing for me to get to know people and for people to get to know me. And again, I'm being given the opportunity at that time to advance and take what I had done for years in playing golf and then moving it into, a career of being in healthcare and insurance and risk management. Well, it's no great secret that most insurance agents play a lot of golf. So I was going to be no different. But what I was able to find, and again, finding something that was very simple and very easy for me to get to know people, was taking that 2 to 4 hours on the golf course in the afternoons, on Friday afternoons, if you will, and beginning to learn how relationships, conversations, different things that could take place in that 2 to 4 hours that would literally get you to a single question about wanting to figure out if you're going to be able to do business with this person. Okay. And most of the time, if you think of the business conversation and when you're trying to introduce your concept, whether it's healthcare, manufacturing, what have you, you're in a business, you're in an hour long or about an hour, 45-minute to an hour long meeting. And you've got to try to get all this in. And if you're, trying to be a very good marketer and salesperson, you're trying to develop rapport, you're trying to talk about your product, you're trying to ask questions, you're trying to listen, and hopefully that once that hour's done, they get up and say, hey, I like the way this went. Let's connect again in a couple of weeks, or let's get back together. I'll get the right people. All that gets relaxed when you've got 2 to 4 hours to play golf. All of that gets relaxed if you're having lunch with someone, okay? The rapport time is 2.5 hours. And by the time you get to the last couple of holes where it's like, oh, do I ask the question? Can I find out whether or not this person, either they like, what they're hearing and they enjoy the round. And as I said to you earlier, the last couple of holes, you end up saying, hey, look, when we get done, is there a possibility that, that you and I can, get back together in a couple of weeks? And let me tell you a little bit more about what we do and how we do healthcare and how we do risk management. And I would tell you 100% of the time, the answer was yes. It was never no. Okay. Because you took the 2.5 hours during that process while you're having fun and you're getting to know that person. They're seeing your personality. They're seeing the way you act. You're having engaging conversations about their family, their career, where they're from, and all that rapport gets built. And it's like, why not? And it was just a way for me at that time, as we were trying to develop, obviously being, effective and efficient in risk management and healthcare. It was a way for me to make those easy, simple connections in the way my personality was built. And I did it for 24 years.
I'm keying in on just a couple of things you're saying. This fit your personal style for getting to know people and to be in actually close a deal. It wasn't done. You didn't force yourself into this. And I would imagine that for a lot of folks, and I'm going to say that, being a female, I wasn't raised thinking that I had a place on the golf course. My dad was an avid golfer. He never took me to play golf. Not bitter anymore, really. But it was one of those things that I didn't learn how golf was not just a good time with your friends. It was an actual business technique. Do you think that there's been a shift over time because we have so much expected of us, we're constantly in communication on a work setting. Do you think that an employer today would give the same deference that you received of just go play golf every Friday, get to know people? Do you think that still exists today?
Yes, it does. The game of golf has evolved. It's continued to evolve. It's been in an ebb and flow of being popular. Obviously, as different PGA Tour players have come in and come out of the market and come into the tour itself, the game of golf has continued to remain popular. The game of golf has continued to be a way of getting out and getting to know people and spending time with people. I mean, take a look at the summer schedule for golf scrambles. There's one every Monday. And there's not just one every Monday at a single golf course. Every golf course in this area has probably got a golf outing on Mondays. It's still the same way to spend a couple of hours with people and either entertaining clients, getting to know clients, prospect golf. To answer your question, it is not changed in the 30 years that I've been involved in doing it.
So it used to be that on an expense report, we'd have to write problem solving in small groups of 4 in a natural setting.
No, I just wrote entertainment golf. Here's the 3 guys, and that was it. So I didn't go through all that, and then that's the way it was done. So yeah, still do that.
Well, so that helps explain how you got to where you are. Let's talk a little bit about BluMine Health, and you mentioned the company that you work for now at BluMine Health.
How did that come about?
How did that come about, and what's BluMine's specialty? So,
as healthcare has, from an insurance standpoint, from a risk management standpoint, it's had its shifts from, the employer having a lot more risk, putting more on employees, more, in which employees and family members and individuals alike are having to shift their own family expenses to try to figure out how do I take care of different health conditions that come along. I always felt like that there was more information and more data that would be available, or that you could find in order to help employers make better and sharper decisions with how they would put together their healthcare risk strategy, if you will. BluMine had a philosophical approach to it, and then, believe it or not, I'll tie it into to the way the game of golf actually works and the thought process behind it. But there was always a thought process in my mind's eye that if you put the CEO of an employer, the CEO of a healthcare system, a hospital, a pharmacist, a physician, and the CEO of an insurance company, if you put them at the table together, the 5 different tornadic pillars that are always fighting, intertwining with one another, there was not a lot of connection between the 5. There wasn't. There was not a lot of connection between the hospital systems, the insurance company. There was a payor, they paid the hospital system. There was not a lot of connections between the insurance individuals and the physicians. They were disconnected. Physicians didn't like the insurance companies telling how they should be practicing medicine and the like. I think if you ask a lot of CEOs in the insurance business, the health insurance business, if we could just assess risk and pay risk, that's what we would like to do. But we have this whole other section of expenses that have to do with physicians, clinical operations, pharmacists, and everything else that we've got to employ and pay for in order just to assess how the healthcare business actually works. Now, not to mention throw in pharmacy from that symbol. So how would you bring those 5 entities, or at least try to bring them into a tighter connection of communications with one another? And as I said, with regard to what was short and what was simple, okay, what was the right thing and the easiest thing to do for me in when I started out my career? Well, that's what golf did for me. So if you think about it in healthcare, what's the most short, simple, and right thing to be doing that has to do with healthcare? And you can find yourself centering in around primary care.
Okay.
Just do the right things. Okay. Even as you encounter some of the things that your mom and dad may have given you genetically later in life. Okay. High blood pressure, cholesterol, all that stuff. But what's the right thing to do? And what's the simple thing to do? Just take better care of yourself within primary care. So here comes along what we call the direct primary care industry, the DPC industry. All right.
Okay.
And if you think about putting those 5 components together, and what does that look like? What does that sound like? Again, an employer, a physician, pharmacy, hospital, insurance. Those are the 5 components. The DPC industry, okay, and BluMine Health does just that. Okay. What we tell people is the basis for the company is we put a medical presence in the company. Okay. We give the employer the ability to have that primary care presence. All right. So there's the sewed up connection between the employer, all right, and the primary care work. We do that with a nurse practitioner model, but we have physician oversight. So there's the physician at the table. There's the medical professional at the table. There's the employer at the table. Okay. Well, who else do we have left? We've got the insurance industry, we've got the hospital industry, we've got pharmacy. So remember what I said, I thought there was more data available. I wanted to go find more data that we could use, okay, in order for business owners to make better decisions about their healthcare strategy. And the thought process was that the insurance companies had it all. And I think what we're learning in reality, and it's nothing against the insurance industry, they had a lot of data, but data configuration, data mining of all that healthcare data at the time still wasn't at the echelon that it's at today. And you're talking about going back only maybe 15, 20 years, maybe. It's not a lot, not very far back. But now the evolution of data in the medical industry is moving very, very fast, okay? So we were able to put together technologies even within our what they call our EMR system, electronic medical records. It's what primary care or primary care doctors and physician groups use to house their patient information. We were able to put together technology that was perfect for the employer to have and for the insurance companies to say, okay, here's claim information. Here's information coming out of, the primary care office, which was us, if you will, all HIPAA compliant, okay, and PHI compliant, if you will. But we were able to, at that point, bring the insurance industry closer to us in an explanation of claims. So there is the insurance industry at the table now, okay, with additional data that we could use to help healthcare strategy. And that leaves hospital systems and pharmacy. Well, I will tell you what, 2.5 years ago, one of the strongest and best relationships that I think I could ever imagine for our company, BluMine Health, was an alliance partnership that we set up with Baptist Healthcare. They have been a tremendous partner for us in coming in, understanding the DPC model, the direct primary care model, and what we could do in several markets for them, and what we could also do in extending that next level of referral and care into a major healthcare system. Okay, so we're doing the right things at the primary care level, doing the right things with the employer world, doing the right things with physicians and medical professionals. And Baptist gave us the capability of doing the next right thing as we would see and encounter chronic conditions and things of that nature, and make the right referrals into a healthcare system so that continuum of care continued to go on. And we were able to glean claim data, okay, in order to be able to manage that component. So there's the hospital relationship. So I've got employers, I've got physicians, I've got medical professionals, I've got the hospital system, and that left pharmacy. And I think everybody out there today would probably would recognize and would agree that pharmacy is making its way up the backside of the healthcare industry in a cost and an expense that's leapfrogging past medical management. And it's like, what do we do? What do you do to manage that pharmacy component? And so part of what we have in our clinics is we have generic medications, okay? And again, what's the right thing to do? Just do the right thing once you're diagnosed or once you have medications that you're going to need to take. Get them from your physician and from your nurse practitioner right then. And then we have an advocacy component in which we go after, and we're able to work with employers and employees and their families on mitigating costs for high cost medications. And sometimes the high cost medication is what you have to have. Okay, there's nothing wrong with what's out there. They work. But we also have a platform that helps those employers and employees in mitigating that cost. Okay, and you're bringing that cost down. So now I've got the pharmacy at the table. And the most wonderful thing, Wendy, over the last 6.5 years, I think I've moved it about that far. Okay, I might move a little bit more than that, but about that far. But the connection was to try to bring philosophically those 5 components together under one type of arrangement. And I think we've been able to do that in the form of delivering primary care to the employers that we work with.
So one of the things that I think I'm best understanding from this conversation is how interrelated those networks, those 5 components are.
Correct.
And I think about it as almost like a star, and then the individual, me or my team or even our family members that are covered are right there in that center of that star. So we want this network working together around
Correct.
all of us.
Yep.
But it's not, there's in no way can we describe the system as simple, because healthcare is probably, for even though every one of us uses it and needs it, it's one of the most complex things that when it will create an instant headache when we have to think about, oh no, I've got to understand what this means and how much this is going to cost and where do I go from here. Help me with that piece of it.
So, again, when we started with the thought process of all 5 of those components had a disconnect. Okay. I had conversations with hospital administrators about where claims from. It's like, it doesn't matter, it's just revenue. Okay, well, I mean, I know where all the different claims existed when I was in the health insurance industry. Revenue to the hospital systems, okay, to a certain extent. But let's talk about it even more simple.
Okay.
In the healthcare system, prior to what would be the direct primary care model that would come along in the primary care world in general, you had physicians that wanted to do the right thing. They were trying to do the right thing. Okay. And again, just the simplicity of getting people in to get primary care. And I think what DPC and the DPC industry would tell you is creating more and more access to that primary care. All right. And it's amazing, even in the primary care world before DPC came along, when I said they're trying to do the right thing, and a lot of them are, it's just basically having that initial direction of doing the right thing. Okay. And it's not complicated. And so when you bring that nurse practitioner or that primary care physician into the employer's world, because if you remember before this came along, before you're putting that medical presence in the employer, they were just like, okay, I hope this works. I got to manage my insurance cost every year. Okay. And I got a plan, I got deductibles, I got co-insurance, I got co-payments, I got pharmacy, I got all those things. And I just hope they go do the right thing. Okay. And part of that hope is relying on just them being able to get access and do the right thing. That medical presence as that connector, okay, lets that person into that employer world to begin being that right thing presence. Okay.
So it's again, the connectivity, I think we say this at One Southern Indiana all the time, part of our job is finding the ways to make those connections as people need them
Mhm.
at the time they need them and when they can most take advantage of it. What I'm hearing you say is that if everybody comes into the system with the mindset of doing the right thing, they're achieving the same goal.
They are achieving the same goal. I mean, ultimately, one of the things that I've learned in this process, okay, is you have 5 different businesses, okay? They're all 5 different businesses. And they all, like I said, they're all in the business of delivering care, but there's a business component in making money. Okay. Physicians love to do what they do for a living, but physicians make money. Hospitals are in the business of taking care of people. And I think one of the interesting things is, hospitals 15, 20 years ago got into the business of purchasing physicians groups. But I think if you go back and talk to a lot of hospitals now, they want to be in the business of being in the hospital business. Okay.
Right.
But physicians, they're making money. Pharmacies, we all know that. Okay, they're in the business of making money and basically finding healing types of drugs. But there is a business aspect to all of that. And I think even as employers are trying to manage cost down to a certain component, employers would even tell you there's a certain amount of claims that we don't mind paying. I just don't want to pay the $250,000 or $300,000 claim or $100,000 claim if that could have been avoided a couple of years ago. And I happen to think in this philosophy, there's still enough business and there's still enough things that have to be taken care of in a population overall that hospitals, pharmacies, primary care, risk management, employers, if you will all find that, there's plenty there. Okay. We're all getting older. We're doing the best we can. Okay. Well, I know that I am. We're doing the best we can to manage that process as we get older with the right tools. And the right simple thing in primary care has not changed since we were 15, 16 years old. It's still the same. An interesting statistic that I've heard, and I've learned for years, that I thought was so neat was that below age 65, okay, below age 65 in what they call the commercial insurance space, people that are either in fully insured, self-insured, military, what have you, that are below 65. About 52% of that insured population spends less than $500 a year on their health care. Okay. It may be going up just a little bit, but not a lot. You've got between 53 and 76, 77% that spend around $1,100 to $1,200. Okay. They've got things they're engaging in and things that are occurring that they're having to manage. And then you've got that 22 to 23% of the population that are obviously your high utilizers and the ones that we're also, consistently trying to get to make healthier and manage, if you will.
And that's all in
that's below
65.
65.
Okay.
And I was surprised to find out as I began to learn long-term care planning, the Medicare Advantage industry, if you will, that from 65 to roughly 78, 80, it's the same statistics. Okay.
Really?
People that are between 65 and 78, 79 years old, they're relatively healthy. Okay. You would think once you reach 65, you got this whole unhealthy population, but they're not. Okay. It's the end of life expenses from 78 to 90 that obviously drive up a lot of those costs, but they're relatively healthy. So you think about it, from 16 years old to 78, 80, that population doesn't spend a whole lot of money on their health care. And so doing that right thing, even in primary care, and there's an entire model for what we do in DPC for the senior care industry. Okay.
Okay.
Because they recognize if they do the right thing, they'll keep them healthier as they will. Yep.
Okay. So that actually, that makes a lot of sense. The one thing that I think is missing, and I want to add this to the conversation, is our personal responsibilities for our health. I mean, again, we could all be healthier. I can think of many things I could do to increase, my personal health. But in developing a business model, finding folks like me and saying, you need to stay off the fried food. You need to get out and exercise a little bit
There's nothing
more.
wrong with a cheeseburger every once in a while.
Every once in a while, yes, but there are certain things that we have to do to take accountability for our own health. I'm pulling this back into physical activity and thinking about golf in that aspect. You did promise though that that there were golf lessons that came from your healthcare or your business side. So I want to ask both of those questions. Comment on the personal responsibility first, and then let's get back to understanding how golf strategies align.
So what I think BluMine's model and DPC industry in general has been able to do is over the last 20 some plus years, employers have grappled with this whole wellness category.
Right.
Okay. And whether or not, am I getting a return on my investment for putting all this money into the wellness aspect? Okay. And every company now, there might be one or two in the entire United States that doesn't have a wellness strategy, if you will. The DPC industry, that primary care presence, brings that entire wellness component, okay, into an employer world that gives them that hard medical presence to deliver a lot more personal responsibility to not only their families, okay, or their employees, but their family members, right? It's a scenario where, again, what is the right thing to do? And just basically doing the right things around primary care, all right? And you'd be surprised at what may be 2 or 3 visits, what I call good 20 to 25-minute primary care visits will do in getting someone mentally, going down the road of what they should be doing the right thing. Okay. There's nothing wrong with fried chicken every once in a while. There's nothing wrong with a cheeseburger every once in a while. There's nothing wrong with pizza. Okay. It's all very good. Even the self-help, physical fitness gurus would tell you can have your cheat day, and that's where you go and do it. But obviously they try to weave in salads and soups and lots of water and protein shakes and things of that nature. Those types of discussions can all take place when that medical presence is put at the employer level. And we know that if we can get into the spouse arena, be it male or female spouse or whatever it may be, we know that begins to even strengthen, okay, the what needs to take place for both individuals that may be on the health plan and that may be looking to try to do the right thing for both of them, if you will. How does all this equate to golf?
Okay, well, I want to just add real quick though on this point, especially coming out of COVID. Some of us are a little heavier than we used to be. Maybe it's time we do our Biggest Loser campaign again. We did that with employer groups employee groups at one time. Maybe it's time to dust that off. But if we do that, we want to understand golf as a potential component.
Well, if I want to circle back around and tie the game of golf back into it, one of the things that I've enjoyed about the people that helped us build BluMine, my employees and my investors, I can't say enough about what they have done to show up when they showed up and the culture that we have at BluMine. And everyone knew that I love to play golf. Okay. Everyone knew. Okay. One of my major investors knows that I play golf. And he comes into the office when he's in town and he looks at me and he's like, "What are you doing here? Okay, how come you're not out?" And I know what that means. And he knows who he is. So at the end of the day, they have given me the ability to go back out and do the exact same thing that made my previous career successful in doing it with BluMine, and that is playing golf, growing the business from that standpoint. What I wanted to do more than anything was take the same arrangement in a philosophy of keeping it short, keeping it simple, keeping it easy, if you will. And a lot of people that have never engaged and played the game of golf think it's so complicated. Okay, I've been playing since I was 5 years old, so I think it's short, it's simple, and it's easy. Okay, but the thought process behind what takes place over the 2 to 4 hours as you're engaged in playing the game of golf, the conversations you're having with people as you're, again, continuing to play the 18 holes is very, very comparable to what I thought was my thought process in the philosophy that I had with BluMine when we started in those 5 components: of healthcare, and just keeping them very simple, keeping the engagement level of those components and the employer very simple. Okay. And I've used it and when I've played golf to explain exactly what I've talked with you about today. Okay. In keeping those connections and how the DPC world does that in a very simple way so that healthcare doesn't have to be all that complicated. Okay. Looking at how healthcare expenses can be managed, strategized, brought forth, and even what I would say with today's medical data, metric, if you will, for predictive modeling, it doesn't have to be complicated. And there are tools that are out there now in our industry that allows employers to look at so much data that they didn't have 15 and 20 years ago. And we have been very fortunate to have relationships in at BluMine that allowed us to build that.
Okay. So I'm making another analogy here, thinking through the, golf is physics. It is the way your body works, and it is all, the data is there. And if you can control your body in order to maximize your understanding of physics, the ball's going to go farther, you're going to have fewer strokes, et cetera. And I would imagine that if you think about the data that exists for
golf,
for healthcare.
Yeah. So two things, and I'll make this leap. For those people that play a lot of golf, they'll know. There's so many different techniques and so much what I would say even data that golfers rely on today to improve their swing, to be better at the game, to know what their ball speed is, to know where their hands are, to know where their club head speed is, to know what the rotation of their ball is, and all that stuff. Okay. And you can learn all those components and understand perhaps how to improve the game, just like you can do a lot of that with regard to BluMine and the DPC industry and the healthcare industry and all the different data that's available to you. Or, and I'll use a very good analogy for our hometown PGA professional and Mr. Zoller and Fuzzy Zoller.
Okay.
And the generation that came through with Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, Lee Trevino, Fuzzy Zoeller, Raymond Floyd, everybody plays golf, knows all these names. All right. Did they have all these tools back then? Okay. And the type of technology that exists today, okay, to play the game of golf? No. They just had a swing to rely on. And if you think about the simplicity of BluMine Health and the primary care delivery that's there, okay, within that industry, the right thing is just really engaging in primary care. You can have access to all the different types of data that healthcare is today. But if you can just get your population to engage doing the right things at the simplest level, okay, you can end up with outcomes of saving healthcare dollars, managing resources in a way that those guys won golf tournaments, 25 and 30 years ago. I'll make a comment, and I don't think I'm wrong on this. I didn't get to see the actual segment, but there was a really, really neat segment that was done on Ben Hogan. I think it was done on ESPN. And I don't think I'm wrong on this, Van, then I'll correct it later. But I mean, today's drivers and the way the guys play, they're hitting it 330, 340 yards with so much technology. And they're 6'3", and they know what to do as far as the swing is concerned. And to go watch that segment on Ben Hogan with the technology that was available to him at that time, we're talking about wooden persimmon drivers, regular shafts, if you will. He was driving the golf ball over 300 yards back then. Wow. And that's 40, 45 years ago, 50 years ago, when he was doing that. So it just goes to show you that very simplistic, simple means in doing the right thing can have tremendous rewards and tremendous savings on the back end if you just get started early doing that.
Great conversation. I love the parallels, and I'm thinking, with a lot of businesses, there may be ways to parallel what you learn from golf to what you do with your business. We're going to turn it over to queue questions from the group in just 1 second. I'm going to ask one final question, Michael. And we didn't rehearse this, and I may catch you off guard with this, but how do you think How do you think in what we hope to end up being a post-COVID world someday,
Mhm.
how is that going to impact healthcare in general? We know it had a positive impact on the game of golf because people were able to be outside. But in terms of what it's going to do for healthcare and where we are today, any predictions you want to share with us?
Oh, wow.
Caught you off guard with that one. I apologize.
Um, it's a pandemic. I think we have learned a lot more in the last 6 or 7, 8 months than we learned in the first 2 or 3. I believe that we are still seeing what is a political battle over the management of this country's health, if you will, from the standpoint. And obviously, we just came out, the CDC just came out with additional regulatory, regulations yesterday on going back to masks, if you will. I think there's a faction that feels like that if you're asking me to get vaccinated and doing the right thing, again, back to the right thing. Okay, I'll go do that. And if the medical community that we want to trust, I think the word there is trust. We want to trust that if CDC is giving us guidelines and regulations, we want to trust that that's the right thing to do. Again, another terminology. What's the right thing to do? You want to have that trust in the medical system that they are going to provide the right avenues in order to come out of that. The scary part of this, it's not as much of the predictability. The scary part of this is it just feels like that we have a newfound capability of generating pandemic types of viruses in laboratories. And there's, whether you believe it or you don't, whether it happened or it didn't, it's out there. And it's a scary situation where you can shut down one of the greatest economies in the world over a period of 12 months with something that could have potentially been manufactured. The predictability that I think is there is we have great resolve in the United States. We have great resolve in our medical community. We have one of the most intelligent medical communities in the world. And we have gotten to this inside of 12 months, okay, to be able to combat it. Do I think we can do the exact same thing over and over again? Yes, I do. The good news is, and I will say this, in partnership with Baptist, and I will say this because I said earlier, they have been amazing. During this time, they have been amazing for us in intelligence, different protocols, different procedures, communications. Could not say enough about what they did for BluMine in providing us a lot of resources and information to help basically treat our patients and their families. So I don't know if there was a prediction in there or not. Okay.
It's the world we're living in, and to have a conversation about healthcare and not acknowledge where we are today. And you're right, with the CDC guidelines changing yesterday, they're still learning as well. So we're trusting that that what they're learning and how they're putting it out in terms of recommendations and policies is, we have to trust that that's going to keep us safe.
Yes.
To the best of their knowledge.
To the best of their knowledge. That is correct.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a great conversation. Amber, wanted to ask if there are any questions in the session, and if you would moderate those, I'll let you address those directly to Michael.
Thanks, Wendy. At this time, we do not have any questions, but feel free to put those in the chat. You can ask about golf, you can ask about healthcare, anything like that. And then we've got them, to let you know, behind the scenes, you can't see the screen where they're chatting. They're talking about someone who hasn't picked up their clubs in over 20 years. So hopefully they'll dust those off and use some of your strategies. And we have a couple people that are chatting and trying to get a group together to go play. So at least on here, people are ready to play for fun and or for business and making friends on here. So that is awesome. Great to hear.
I do have a story to tell if I can tell it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I was just going to ask, what's your favorite thing to eat on cheat day?
I tell you, there's two things. So again, I'm a cheeseburger guy. It's one of my favorite foods. And I have, a couple of years ago, I went to go visit the 10 top places where cheeseburgers were because I wanted to know which one was the best. So I'm not going to reveal what my opinion was because I don't want to be biased towards the other 10 that I went to go see. But for the gentleman that has just, wants to dust his clubs off and after 20 years and figure out how to get back out there and do some business golf, I had a chance a couple of years ago, this is probably about 5 or 6 years ago, in which someone said, okay, I want to see how this works. I want to see how you really, really do this. And so I said, okay, I said, who is it you're trying to go play golf with? And they had the person in mind, and I knew them. And they were both had different products that they were wanting to talk to them about, or to get in to see them, if you will. And so I called him up, picked up the phone, and he says, yeah, he goes, I'll be happy to. We'll go play golf. I said, great. And so we got there that day, and he looked at me and he said, so I'm the victim today, aren't I? And I said, victim being what? He goes, they want to talk to me about getting in to see me. And I said, yeah, they do. He goes, okay, I got it. He goes, when we get in the golf cart, you're going to tell me what do they want to do and who are they trying to get to, and then we'll go from there. And the two guys I was playing golf with had never seen this happen before. So we get to number 2 fairway, and they come driving up alongside me. It's like, hey man, how's it going? And I said, you don't want to be that guy. Okay, wrong time for the conversation. And it's like I said, I'll tell you when we get done. So they go driving off, and the rest of the day takes place. And so the gentleman was asking me, he said, so, tell me what it is that they're wanting to do. And one had to do with hospital beds, another one had to do with laboratory services. He goes, the guy on the hospital bed got a pretty good chance. He goes, laboratory services, probably not. And I said, okay. So we get done, and he doesn't have time to stick around, but as he's putting his golf clubs and they're cleaning them up at the end of the round, he turns to the two guys and said, so I know that you want to have a conversation about, hospital beds. He said, yeah. And he said, I'll get a meeting set up with our chief purchasing agent. And he said, you're on your own. He said, there's opportunity. He said, laboratory services is pretty complicated. He goes, it's a pretty broad, department for us. So he said, I'm not quite certain how I would put you into that. He said, but I'll make the effort and I'll let you know. So he drives off, and the two guys looked at me and go, is it just that easy? I said, if you know when to say it, you know how to bring it up at the right time, it's just that easy.
It's just that easy.
Just that easy. And so they were just absolutely laughing at it. So,
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, it's a great story, and it's a great example of the real purpose of the conversation today is let's talk about healthcare, and let's talk about the game of golf, and let's talk about how they're used together. Amber, I'll turn it over to you to sign us off.
We do have a couple questions.
Oh, good.
Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So we'll move forward. Looks like there's a 2-parter and then another one. This is a great question. Michael, have you ever let a client win to get a deal made?
No.
You're not even going to think about that one.
No.
I'm guessing there's a competitiveness there. You played in college.
No.
Okay. I think you're a good golfer, right?
I'm a
Okay.
very competitive golfer, and it's just not in my nature. I can't help it.
I love it. Okay, so this is a 2-parter. One, how can I become a better golfer?
Okay.
I don't know if you're giving lessons or we can pay you for that, but how do they become a better golfer? And 2, how do the guests find out more about how BluMine Health can help with their company's bottom line and also improve their employees and their family's health?
Okay. So I'll answer the second part first. Okay. We are in the process of our website is up right now, but we're in the process of completely redoing our website. So the address is www.bluminehealth.com.
Putting that in the chat.
And that is the best resource at this point to reach out and visit with us, or at least start a communication to where we can sit down. If you want to play golf, just put that in the request form, and I'll see about teeing it up and playing golf with you if you'd like to do that, and would love to do that. How do you get better at the game of golf? Well, if you have a swing and you play, I will give you the practice regimen that was given to me at the age of 12, and I still use it today. As I tell people, if I'm out playing golf and they want tips or what have you, or if I'm on the driving range, if you want to get better, start in the spring when it gets warm. Start with your sand wedge, and when you hit that club 3 times in a row at your target, the way you should hit it, then you put that club back in your bag and you go to your pitching wedge and you start over again. And you'd be amazed at the number of times you hit 2 in a row perfect, and the 3rd one doesn't come along and you have to start over again. You'll find yourself hitting a lot of golf balls, but you'll also find yourself not advancing until you've done that. And after you've done that and you've gotten your swing back throughout the summer, if you want to practice, then you can break it up, sandwich the 7-iron, 6-iron up to 3 and 4-iron, and then drivers. But 3 in a row towards your target, and you don't get to put the club in the bag until it's over with.
So I've been playing golf since I was in my early 20s. No one has ever explained that regimen to me, and I've paid for a lot of lessons.
Mhm.
So there's I've enjoyed everything, but that's the one that I'm going to put into practice next time I dust my clubs off.
If you get your swing to where you can advance the ball, you can control the golf, which obviously I know is a lot, but again, even if you're an 18 to 22 or 23 handicapper, and you're just trying to get back into the groove, that's the best way to start practicing. That's the best way to get better. That's the best way to put the mechanics in your swing.
That's amazing. Any other questions, Amber?
Awesome. Last call for questions. If anybody has one, again, you'll see in the chat, you can go to www.BluMineHealth.com. You may be able to play a round of golf with Mr. Michael Dees. And we do want to thank our sponsor again today, BluMine Health. We appreciate each of you for being here today. And if there's no more questions, we will go ahead and sign off for Wednesday with Wendy. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Wendy.
Appreciate it.
Mhm.